Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. If you are watching this, that means you have likely watched one of our other videos about what benefits a literary agent has for self-publishing authors. So today we want to talk about when is the right time. If you are a self-published author, when do you know it's time to find an agent? How do you go about it? All of those things. So there are a few times that we have figured out that I think would be beneficial for you to start thinking about finding an agent. The first is you have some sort of subsidiary right interest.
Yeah.
So we've talked in the past about what subsidiary rights are. Basically, they are all the additional rights that could be exploited for a book beyond the print rights.
Right.
So the, book club rights, the merchandising rights, audio, film, TV, foreign, things like that. And as self-published authors, especially when you're having a modicum of success, you might get companies who reach out about adapting your work in the format in which they're working. And that is a great time to have an agent.
Yeah. I think that it puts you in a really powerful position. I also think it's super important. Um, there is a lot of conversation about, well, you can just hire a literary lawyer to review the contract. Absolutely, you can. It's a great resource to have on hand. However, before you even get the contract, there's a whole job that somebody can be doing to benefit you. And that's actually making sure that the company you're intending to work with is the right company for you in the book, but also that that's the best offer you can get. So, and that's not something a literary lawyer is going to do. They're not going to shop your book wider. They're not going to go broader. So, for example, let's say you get interest or even an offer from an Italian publisher who wants to translate your book into Italian. You could sign that contract, get a literary lawyer to review it, but also you could get a literary agent who would work with their team to find the best publisher for it and make sure that the publisher that's contacting you is actually, um, you know, the right kind of publisher for your book and that you want.
Right. And we've done a number of videos, I think, in the past on literary lawyers. And I think what we always come back to is the market, right? Like a literary lawyer is going to very competently approach your contract, hopefully. But are they doing the same for, okay, where does this contract put your book in the marketplace? And I think that's
Yeah.
what agents are constantly thinking about. And where does it put your future in the marketplace too? There are clauses in contracts about next works, about what you can and cannot publish. So it is important to have a partner in these things that is looking more big picture, whereas literary lawyers might be focusing more on the immediate concern of the contract.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the same would be true of audio. There's also things like that, when these conversations start happening, there are rights that might be available that you don't even know about that aren't getting approaching. An Italian publisher is approaching you. Very good chance a French publisher or maybe a Portuguese publisher might also be interested. So rather than leave those rights on the table because you don't know what to do about that, an agent can broaden your translation possibilities. Or, same would hold true if you get an offer for audio. You have one publisher who noticed you, but maybe there's five others who didn't know you were around and now who might be interested when they hear about you. And
Drive the
that's,
price up.
pardon?
Drive the price up.
Drive the price up. An agent will definitely earn their commission. We can say that every time.
Yep.
So yeah, so any interest in subrights is a great time to start thinking about agents and approaching agents. And we discussed this in the other video, but I want to repeat this. When you're self-publishing, you have a team. You have a cover artist, you have an editor, you have a team of people who are helping you get that book ready to put up for sale. An agent is just another member of the team. So when you reach a certain level in that next level in your career, which is what happens after you get the book up for sale, what are your next opportunities? That's where an agent becomes an important member of your team.
Right.
Some of the other times to get an agent would be if you have maybe your next work done. These are in no particular order, by the way. You've got your next idea or your next book done, and maybe you're thinking, wonder if I could traditionally publish this. Maybe I'm interested in getting into Target or Barnes and Noble or my local or some local indie stores. Testing the market in that way or getting into traditional publishing would be a great time to do that then.
Yeah. Self-publishing doesn't have the barrier of needing an agent in order to publish your work, but traditional publishing does for the most part. Most, you know, larger traditional publishers do not accept unsolicited submissions outside of like open calls, which happen rarer and for smaller windows of time. So agents kind of open that door to even submit your work to traditional publishers and get responses. Because you can
Yep.
submit, but that doesn't mean you'll get a response if it's not an agented submission.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah.
Getting an agent and taking something traditional published doesn't mean you have to give up the work you're doing self-publishing. We have a lot of authors who are working in a hybrid space. So they're doing both. And we as an agency are representing, their sub-rights for their self-published books, but then representing a greater expanse of rights for their traditional published books.
Right. With that said, though, it can be if you want to move everything over. Like if you
Right.
decide this has been great, I'm ready to go all trade, and I want to see if I can get my self-published works to go trade too. That's the time to look for an agent. And at that point, you have a whole resume of books that you can hopefully bring to an agent as, part of the package that you're offering for working with you. These are books that I have self-published that have done well, and now I can hopefully rehome them with a trade publisher. You will need an agent for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. An agent, I get a lot of, you may get a lot of queries about this too, that self-published authors are looking for somebody to market their book. And I think that word can be used broadly and mean a lot of different things. But if you're looking for an agent to get you more sales while you stay in the self-publishing space, that's not something an agent's going to take on.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It's
all,
a big job.
yeah, and I also think it's important to note that um, when we're talking about when to get an agent when you're self-published, it's not because you can't sell the books. That's not going to work either. So we also get a lot of, I've self-published this book. I'm only able to sell 150 copies. I need an agent so I can reach a larger audience. That's not likely to happen typically because you've already sort of tapped into your market. You've sort of proven to agents and publishers that there isn't a market for your book. So typically the authors who are able to take their self-publishing books and move to the next level are hitting a much higher level of sales and having major success, and for their own reasons have decided they want to go this route. It's not because the book isn't selling and maybe traditional publishing would sell better, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, and that's how publishers approach it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in terms of who to approach and how, um,
I think that's what we have to really drive home here is you can't just decide you want an agent and throw things out there and see what sticks. It's just not how the process works. So we have a number of videos on our channel about how to query, how to find agents, how to research them, what questions to ask, all of those things. But you can't look for an agent until you have done your research on the traditional publishing industry, how to enter it, and how to make yourself stand out in it. So do your research. There are things to consider, like not all agents and agencies will take on self-published authors or will take on an author in your certain situation, whether it's subsidiary rights rep or completely rehoming works. So you really have to do your research. Like I said, we have plenty of videos on our channel,
yeah.
we have articles on our blog, but there's so many other resources out there too. There's writers' conferences, there's other channels and podcasts, so many. So before you make, the emails, before you send them out, make sure you're doing your research to give yourself the best chances possible when you get in touch with an agent, because there are rules and there are conventions and things that work and things that don't. And it's important to know them and put your best foot forward.
Yeah, and I also just sort of want to add one thing that there is no magical entree into publishing and publishing success. And I think a lot of people might see this video and go, well, maybe I should self-publish everything first and then I'll get an agent. I don't think it's much easier for a self-published author to get an agent than it is for an unpublished author.
I would say it's harder. You're launching a whole brand
Yeah.
and trying to make it successful before you know, get an agent. If that's your end goal, it's not necessarily the smartest path. So I think it really is, and we talked about this in our last video, it really is what is your specific career goal and what is the strongest path forward to that. If your path is to get an agent, it's not necessarily self-publishing and then bringing them a whole package. It would be
Exactly.
querying. If your goal is to get your books out there and control your business and build your brand by yourself, that's where self-publishing would come in for
Yep.
you.
Yep. And there's no right or wrong. It's just the path that works for you.
Right. So we hope this video was helpful. If you haven't watched our last one, please go. It will probably be helpful to you too. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you back here next time.